That's all right. Okay. All right. All right, brand managers, as I call you, my branding students, welcome to our first special speaker session. As you well know, through the month of February on Thursdays, we're going to hear from people doing branding in the real world. And I am pleased to introduce our first speaker this semester, Jelena. I hope I got that good. I'm not going to try the last name, but I met Jelena on LinkedIn. Uh, just so impressed by the things that she would share, her insights into brands. I subscribe to her Substack, which I recommend all of you do the same, where she covers marketing science, memory, brand growth, thoughts, campaigns. I was especially happy to see that she spent a good amount of time working at one of my favorite companies in the world, Coca-Cola, where she directed global brands and creative campaigns in 200 markets. So when you're talking about real world branding, today's special guest speaker has done that for a long time and has stories to tell. And so I'm going to shut my face and turn this over to our special speaker, Jelena, to take us from here. Thank you. Take it away.
Thank, Thank you, Tom. I'm actually especially excited about today's session. So thank you for having me, and thank you to all brand brains, like for listening to me. And like I kind of like to have a captive audience because like I feel I have a lot to share, and like a kind of I don't want this to go into existential crisis, but like I feel like as we grow older, the biggest purpose in our lives, or the biggest motivation, is like one, not about what we can get or gain. It becomes about what we can give. So like that's why I like my captive audience, because I like to believe that I have to share a few useful things. We have about 1 hour, and like I guess after that, I would love to hear the questions from you. But overall, if you don't mind, I would love to keep this interactive. As I was saying to Tom, and he was very gracious to agree to this. This is somewhat of freestyle presentation, like, so I will see where it goes. I do have slides, but like it's really open. And if you have any questions at any point in time, or opinions, like, please jump in and interrupt me. I don't mind. So let me go to my slides. So yes, crazy little thing called marketing. And as Tom was saying, I don't know if that's the topic, but that's definitely inspiration behind this presentation. It is all the things I learned after being 25 years in business. And, like, I don't want to go into the boring stuff like, like my bio. But I think what gives me a permission or credentials to speak about that is that I worked for 18 years at the Coca-Cola. And, like, in addition to really loving the product and the brand, it is, I can tell this, like without doubt, it is the best marketing organization in the world. And it's also the best school of marketing. And I was fortunate to learn everything I know there, and from all the wonderful people and talent that I was exposed through my work. After that, uh, or in between, like my full-time jobs, I work as a consultant. And again, I had a great pleasure and fortune of like doing projects, some serious projects, mostly in the area of capability building. For some reason, people the same like Tom, like believe that I have the stuff to teach people. So And it is my great pleasure or my great passion to actually teach. And after Coke, I joined a company called Miro. I don't know if you guys heard about Miro. It's one of the biggest startups in the world. And, like at one point, and this is part of my teaching, I would say, at one point after 18 years at Coke, I figured that, like I didn't want to become, to say, like redundant or irrelevant. So I felt that I needed to reinvent myself and that I needed to step outside of the CPG world and learn about other models of marketing. So I moved into technology B2B SaaS, and I'm very excited, or I'm very grateful for everything that I learned. But at the core, in my soul, like I'm a classically trained marketing, and that's what I will be sharing with you today. So the first, and as I promised to Tom, the most important slide in this presentation is this one. And I don't know if you can see, it's actually the t-shirt that I'm wearing right now. So why is this important? Like some kids, like have different thoughts, beliefs, or dreams, like like when they are children about what they are going to become when they grow up. Like some people want to be doctors, some people want to be unicorns or princesses. For some strange reason, I always wanted to be a philosopher. So, like my dream in life, and I'm not kidding you, like was to live in a Greek island and sit under the olive tree and think about life. I did study philosophy, so I kind of pursued that. I never became a philosopher, but like if you go and read my Substack and like or LinkedIn or any other soapbox, like in which I perform, you will see that I am marrying a lot of, like deep philosophical thinking with marketing, which is also to tell you, like I think one of the biggest strengths in life is really to, like somehow like marry, like things that are seemingly incompatible, because that expands and opens up, like your point of view on things. So basically, my advice to you, don't lock yourself into a marketing box. Like there is a world outside of marketing. And if you want to become a great marketeer, like you need to be aware and sensitive of the world in which we are living. So anyhow, Socrates and corrupting the youth since the 5th century before Christ, this is what we are going to do today. Okay, a little bit more about me, and this is again another entry into my existential crisis thinking. Since I started consulting, I changed 3 names of my consulting practice. The first one was Open Kitchen, and that's because the one thing that I'm most passionate about after philosophy is actually cooking, and I'm not going to go into that, but like I believe that cooking has a lot to do with philosophy, with marketing. And, like cooking, similar to marketing, is based on very defined rules. Like in order to cook, you need to know, like the rules that underpin the practice of cooking. You can't do, like they're just basic. You can't do without that. But then on top of it, you need to layer creativity, personality, and instinct and creativity. Like so marketing is that you need to learn the rules in order to be able to break the rules. My second name was Angry Girl, and like I would say, like that's probably my alter ego, like Angry Girl. Now, as I was told at one point, like that name did not really work well with my clients, so I needed to change it. But it's still, like the name that I like the most. The reason why I liked it the most personally because it suits my personality. But secondly, like I think that anger has a very bad rep. However, anger, like the same as the rest of emotions, but in particular, anger is one of the most strongest forces of human behavior. Like if you are angry, like about something, like that is a great motivator to change things. So I'm often angry about many things, like, but I use it as a force of good. And finally, my current name for the practice is brand intelligence. And like because I really see AI as an extension of my faculty. And I would advise all of you, like to learn about AI and, like see it as, again, as an extension of who you are, because it's so much more than just a tool. Okay, so I'll start with some obligatory quotes that defined my thinking, really. And I forgot one, but I'll tell you in the end. So the first one, Albert Einstein, like somehow like to see myself, or like I wish I was, like Albert Einstein, but like he had, if I had an hour to solve a problem, or if I had an hour to solve the world, I would spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about solutions. Unfortunately, and this is the real world thinking, like unfortunately, like once you get into business, like you will learn that it is unfortunate that today's thinking is very superficial, it's very shallow, it's very tactical. And, like people are jumping immediately into tactics, into solutions, without really understanding what is the problem that they are trying to solve, which leads, like I would say, like short term, it might lead to some results, but, like all in all, unless you are able to understand the root cause of the like situation that you are solving, you will never sustainably really create a solution or a solve for that problem. So my advice to you, like if you have to manage or like manage your time, spend the most of your time really understanding the problem, because like the problem, the question that you are asking, and asking questions is the most difficult thing, and like it's art in itself, but the question often like carries the seed of a solution. So once you understand what's the question, once you understand what's the problem, you will already see a solution. Another absolutely favorite quote, like by Pablo Picasso: computers are useless. The only thing they give you are the answers. Like, and again, that, like links back to the previous quote. Answers are great. Your job is to ask questions. And, like there are no stupid questions, as everyone is saying. And I was, like in my whole 25 years of, like experience, I was known for asking questions, like very provocative questions, which honestly, like doesn't make you popular ever, like, so you get to create many enemies by asking uncomfortable questions, but without that, there is no truth. And, like, and sometimes the most naive, the most banal questions lead to the biggest truth. So, like, never fear that you will, like, appear stupid by asking questions. There are no bad questions. So why the questions? Because like one of the most difficult jobs you will ever do, and probably the most important jobs you will do, is to create a brief. Like the brief is the map to a solution. And without good brief, there are no good answers. So Sir John Haggerty, who is the founder of BBH, said the brief is the first ad, and my job is to make sure the second one is better. Great briefs lead to great solutions, great campaigns, great creativity, and there is truly nothing ever more important than that. And it is the most difficult job to do as well, by the way. And this is my final quote. I don't know. I mean, I know that you are all very young. I don't know if you had a chance to watch a TV series called House by the character called Dr. Gregory House. And it is one of my absolutely favorite series. Anyhow, he was famous by constantly repeating one thing, which is that everybody lies. As a doctor, he was famous for diagnosing, very peculiar diseases. And, in order to diagnose, he really needed to dig out, what is the true, I would say, cause behind that disease. And he was usually saying, everybody lies, so don't trust anyone. And, I can tell you this is really true. And it is true, I mean, applied to marketing and life in general. And it is true, not because people are deliberately lying or, wanting to deceive others. It is true because, people don't know how to express themselves. People usually find it difficult or hard, to introspect or to talk about their feelings. So if you go to I would say, a focus group, to listen to consumers talk about your brands or talk about your advertising or whatever, just don't believe them. Nothing they are saying is ever true. However, if you are able to really go beyond the words, beyond what they are saying, to understand what is the real motivation behind of what they are saying, then you will find the truth. So don't ever, take things at the face value. And whether you like it or not, your job is really to become an archaeologist, I would say, or a detective, dig deep, beyond the words. And, look for the truth because as people are saying, the truth will set you free. But it's hard to get by the real truth. Why is that your problem? It is your problem because without the truth, without understanding the problem, without being able to articulate that problem in a way that can be solved, this is what you are going to get. Now, this is an example of made up brief. So it's not real, it's parody, it's a satire. But I will tell you, I can't tell you, how many times did I get this level of thinking? This is what you're going to get in the real world. It's not a joke, it's real. And, if you get the brief that gives you a communication objective like this, the goal of communication is crystal clear. We need to sell more cars. If that's your brief, I can tell you, no amount of money, no amount of talent, no amount of creativity, nothing in the world, will save you, or nothing in the world will help you create a good advertising, good campaign, good solution to your problem. So reject all of that and ask the real questions. Okay, so 10 things I believe to be true. This is my existential part of presentation. Okay, so this is the biggest one. Every marketing problem is a people problem. What do I mean by that? No matter which company do you work for, no matter what the business objective is, marketing objective is, brand objective is. Behind all of that is always a person that is doing something that we don't want them to do, or not doing something that we want them to do, or not doing enough of what we want them to do. So every marketing problem is a people problem. You need to find it, you need to understand it, and that people problem is usually buried, like under layers and layers and layers of illusory, like problems. So you need to dig deep, and you need to find that one problem, and that's what you need to solve for. Now, when you think about it, and again, I'm telling you from my perspective, like I don't know what you are learning, but if this is true, and I believe it is, if this is true, like your job is really nothing else but changing people's behavior, like because if the root cause of a problem is someone doing something that we don't want them to do, like, so let's say, like I'm drinking Coke, but, like someone else, like LaCroix, like they want me not to drink Coke, they want me to drink their product. So, like if that's my job as a marketeer, like to change the behavior from one to another, then, like your role is really not about, I don't know, like it's not about emotions or pretty pictures or anything. It is about understanding how to change people's behavior. That's where everything boils down to. Now, this is, here we come to our little experiment. If your job is to change people's behavior, what you need to understand is that people will always resist you. Like they will always resist changing the behavior, because that's the most, as humans, like it is the most difficult thing for us to change. So let me see if I can see you now. Okay, so a little experiment. So if you can cross your hands like this. Okay, let's do it.
Cross your hands.
Cross your hands. Experiment. That's what this is about. Okay, you did. Fine. So now uncross them and, like cross them a different way. How does that feel? Is it hard? Is it uncomfortable? Does it make you think? Like that's what the behavioral market, you can uncross your arms now. That's what the behavioral marketing is about. Like it's making people change their behavior. The changing behavior is always hard. We always resist it. Like it always creates a friction, like, and we people are creatures of habit. We don't like to change the behavior. So if I'm someone drinking Coke, like I will resist marketing to make me drink something else. So that's, that's something that I would like you to remember. Okay. This is one of the most important charts when I'm, like when I'm doing my work. It's a BJ Fogg behavior model. Tom is nodding his head, so I don't know if you learned about this, but I will assume you did. So basically, the whole point about this is that in order to change people's behavior, you need to do two things or three things, let's say. First one, like you need to motivate them. People need to be motivated to change their behavior. The second thing is the ability or the ease. The behavior that you want them to adapt needs to be easy to do. Like believe me, no one is going to, like do something that is difficult for them to do. Unless, like they are very motivated, such as, like I'm motivated every January, like to sign up to a gym. And yes, it's very difficult, but I'm motivated. So, like I'll do it. So you need to have a high motivation. You need to have a high ease. And then, like the job of marketing is to input the prompts or the triggers, like in that context, and that will change the behavior. Okay, now this is something, I'm not seeing my screen, so let me move this. Okay. Why is that why is that important? What do you need to know? Changing the behavior, like why is that important and how do we do it? It all starts with this little tiny thing in our brains called nucleus accumbens. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing it correctly, but doesn't really matter. It is the pleasure center in our brain. Now, like some great scientists like James Olds and Peter Milner did an experiment in 1954 that basically laid the foundation for everything we do today. They were doing experiments on poor rats, and they were stimulating this little piece in their brain. And, like what they learned is that it is the pleasure center in our brain. So what they learned is that the rats like this so much, like that they learned how to press, like some lever in order to, activate more of that. So we as humans, we would do everything for pleasure, like that's the most, I would say, instinctive, rudimentary need, like that we have. So why is that important? Because, like that little thing in our brain, it activates. So nucleus accumbens, it activates when we crave something. So you can see this on the left-hand side picture. So it activates. When that desire is fulfilled or satisfied, like that brain, that part of the brain calms or turns off. Now, I'll tell you one really controversial thing, which after, like all these many years in marketing makes me think real and hard, is that, like our job as marketeers is not to satisfy that itch. It's not to scratch the itch of desire. It is actually to keep it itching, like because by making people desiring for something, like we are increasing their motivation. Where their motivation is high, like we can make them do what we want them to do. Now, think about it, like whichever way you want, but this is what marketing does. It's keeping the itch itching. So the other, moving on, like with my great beliefs. The next one, this is also a big one, which is great advertising builds brands. But the greatest brands are not built on advertising alone. Now, if I could, like I would shout this from all the rooftops. Marketing is not advertising. It is not. Like advertising is part of marketing, and advertising might be the sexiest, like the most attractive part of marketing, like, but advertising is just a very small part of what marketing does. And I'll tell you, like based on all of my good and bad experiences, like advertising is a great tool, but more often than not, advertising is not a problem. Like there are other problems that you as a marketer need to solve first before ever going into advertising. And obviously, like these other things are, like whether you have a good product or not. If you have a bad product, no amount of marketing, no amount of advertising is ever going to help you. Like if your product, like if you don't have a distribution, like as I was saying, like the way to change people's behavior is to make it easy for them to change the behavior. If I can't find your product when I go to the shop or wherever I'm going, that is causing a friction, like, so if there is no distribution, it's not easy for me to buy, therefore I will never buy. And then lastly, the price, like if you are selling it at the price that is not affordable or that doesn't justify the value that you are offering me, I will never buy. Again, advertising is one thing, but usually not the right thing for you to solve. Now, this is my last minute addition to the presentation, and it is a LinkedIn type of warning, which is be wary of false dichotomies. Like the marketing world, and especially LinkedIn, is full of gurus, like that are going to sell you everything. And, like one of the most important wisdom that, like these truth peddlers are selling is the dichotomy between product and marketing or product and brand. Like I would say product and marketing or product and brand, whichever way you want to look at it, like is the same thing. It's the, like just different sides of the same coin. They cannot work one without the other. So if you think about, like what is really that the product does? Product creates a value that we are offering to people. Product creates value. That's why I'm buying it. Like what marketing does, it's making people see the value in what we are offering. Like if the product itself can be the most valuable thing in the world, but if I, as a future consumer, don't see the value in it, I'm never going to buy it. Like, so that's why one can never work without the other. And one is not more important than the other. So as I was saying, like advertising is important, but it's really just one of the many things you will have to do in, like your as future marketeers. And I wanted to establish something very clearly, which is that creativity matters. Like creativity is one of the most effective marketing levers. Like it's there is probably the greatest correlation between creativity and return on investment. Creativity matters. And like creativity is not the biggest, I would say, like marketing lever. There are others. For instance, like the price. Like if you, or consumer promotions, like if you drop your price, like by 90%, of course people are going to buy it. Like there is no doubt about that. But it will cost your company a lot. Like it will completely ruin, like your profitability, and you definitely don't want to do that. So I would say creativity is the most effective tool we have, like at the cost that you can afford. So always go for the best creativity you can get. Now, the other side of that coin, and I was kind of brainwashed, like at Coke to, like learn that the most creative idea that is solving the wrong business problem is just a very creative waste. Like so. The purpose of what we do is not to win creative awards, it's not to, like do the most creative things. Creativity always needs to be in function of a problem that you're trying to solve. If it's not, it's wrong, even if it is the most creative. And that's why, like going back to the beginning of the presentation, your biggest job is to write a brief. And to write a brief, you need to understand what is that single problem that you are trying to solve. That's how everything connects. Okay, another controversial thing. Your job is not to make people love your brand. Like, and that's coming kind of weird from someone, like that worked at Coke. At Coke, believe me, everything in life was measured, like based on brand love. Like that was the single most important metric that we ever measured. And it is the most important thing in the world, but it is a mean to an end. Like your job is not to make people love your brand. Your job is to sell the product. That's why we exist. Like, and if you want me to add like a Coke specific thing, like I kid you not, from the first day I joined the company, like I was told that my job is to drive shareholder value. Like that was my job, like to the point where we were joking, like every day when we were going back home, like we were joking, like, oh, like, did you grow the shareholder value today? But that's why, like, that's why you're getting your salary. Now, making people love your brand is mean to an end. It's a mean to growing shareholder value. It's a tool. It's not the end goal. So someone told me, like that we marketeers are just glorified and probably overpaid salespeople. And that's a mindset change that, like I would highly advise that you adopt. And that doesn't mean, like just going and yelling, like to buy people, like to buy products. It's not about last click attribution. It's not about, like pushing buy button. It's about deploying, like different techniques and everything we know in order to lead people to the conclusion and, like to keep that itching, like until they desire to buy your product as the only thing they, like they want to do in their life. But in the end, it is about buying the product. Okay, another one is consumer journey is a lie. Never trust anyone who is telling you, like, or who is selling you a consumer journey. Maybe it wasn't once upon a time, but now definitely it is. Now, if you go again back, if you go to my Substack, like I wrote a couple of articles about that. And, like these articles basically talk about marketing as a quantum science or a quantum marketing, as I call it. Quantum marketing is different from deterministic or Newtonian marketing. And Newtonian marketing is about, like I tell you to buy Coke and you go and you buy Coke. Things don't work that way anymore. And as I said, maybe they did once, like when the choices were different, like when you had 2 TV channels and, like no other noise or messages. But today, people are continuously connected to everything, to information, to brands, and importantly, like to each other. What that means is that every single time something happens, it changes the output, like a little bit like a butterfly effect, like so. If you today, like if you go to, I don't know, like whatever you are, like a TikTok, like, and you learn from someone, like that Coke, I don't know, participated in, I don't know, FIFA event and something happened that you disagree with, that will change everything you think and about Coke. Like, and that's why I'm saying, like marketing is not deterministic, marketing is not linear, like everything is connected into a system. That system is complicated and it's huge, it's big. So you can't, like what that also means, like another false assumption in this, like a customer journey or even like the funnel model, is that the things are separate, like nothing is separate, like everything is connected. And you can't really tell people what to do anymore, but you can create conditions like for them to do the thing that you want them to do, like, so the way I see myself is I see myself more like a behavioral engineer, like I create conditions for people to want to do something. I can't tell them what to do, like, but it's kind of a perfect trap, like I can set a trap for them, or I can create conditions for them to change the behavior. But, like, again, that's not a linear thing. Okay, this is connected. Don't tell people what to think. So as I said, like I led brand marketing at Mira. Mira is a B2B SaaS company, tech company. Tech companies, B2B SaaS, like they tend to believe that if you tell people, like that your product is the greatest product of all, people will go and click and buy immediately. That's not how things work. And what I mean by that is, like if I would to tell you right now, like that I'm a great singer, like would you believe me? Maybe you would because you're kind people, like, but that's really not how it works. So there is a difference between stimuli and effect. If I want you to think that I'm a great singer, I would probably have to sing something for you, and then you would, like you would believe me. So just by putting a stimuli, like saying, "Oh, Jelena, she knows how to sing," like doesn't guarantee the effect or the belief, like so. You need to evoke that belief in other ways than just, like telling people what to think. And I think that's almost the last one, which is everything communicates, everything. So, like take, for example, like me wearing, like my t-shirt at this meeting, like this is because I want you to believe something about me, like this is a media channel. Uh, the other thing is, like again, going back to Coke, um, like you think you like Coke advertising, but what you don't realize is that, like one of the most important marketing channels or media channels at Coke are really um, trucks, like those huge, big red trucks, like that you see on the streets. And that you don't even realize that you're seeing them, like, but subconsciously, like you're absorbing those messages. Then, like you have all these red umbrellas or red furniture, or you go to the store and you have the whole like a red block, or, like the whole block of redness, like in the store. That's what communicates. Like the sales rep, the way they address, the way they speak, like the waiting line, like when you call the company, all of that are messages, like, and one of the most famous, and that's a whole different science, but like one of the most best examples of that is, I would say, Apple stores. Like Apple stores are one of the most important marketing channels for Apple. Like Apple Store is an experience of Apple products. Like you go there, you get into the world of Apple. The way, like how is that thing called? Like a genius, I don't know how they're called, like these people that are helping you with the products, like the way they speak, the way they look, the way they, like they address, all of that communicates Apple essence. And like so when you think about marketing, when you think about branding, like again, don't fall into a trap that like branding is just what we do. There is this one other quote, like that says is that people absorb, let's say, like brands, or people build brands, brand perceptions, like birds build nests, like from the scraps, like that they find, like around. So that's your brand perception, like all the different bits and pieces that you are absorbing and seeing and hearing every day. That sums up into a perception of the brand. It's never about advertising. Advertising is part of that, but again, very small part. So if you were not convinced in everything that I said, like these are the two takeaways that explain or sum up marketing for me. And I hope this is going to play now. So marketing is an art, and I'll play you this video, but like I wanted to give you a little bit of philosophical story before this video. Like I read somewhere, another of my existential stories is we as people, like are really, how to say, limited to our own perception of the world. Like I will never, ever, no matter what I do, I will never know what is in Tom's head. Like I can't, like because everything in my life lives in my mind. Like I can guess, I can talk to him and he can explain. But in reality, like I will never be able to get there and to see it for myself. That's why communication is important. Communication, words. Like the reason why we use communication is to really, like transcend the limitation of our own minds, like, and to be able to connect with other people. So, like when I'm speaking to Tom, like the reason I'm speaking to him, the reason, like the way how I'm using my words, like some people call it persuasion. It is in the end, it is about persuasion, like, but the way I'm using my words is to make him believe something that I want him to believe. So, that's what communication is about. And, like one of the first ways how to communicate, you learn from your parents, like, so when your parents were telling you, like to eat your greens, to eat your spinach, like that I'm sure you hated, like when you were a child, they were using the persuasion technique. They were using words, like to persuade you to do what they wanted you to do. Now, like this is the art of marketing. And as I was saying, like by saying to people to do something will not take you far. Like you need to find a way to evoke that feeling in them. That's the art of marketing. And I love this video. So let me share it with you. That explains it all to me.
And now, let's move on to the main news of the two children named Elon and Lux have still not cleaned up their room. Our special correspondent Maria joins us. We will keep you updated on the situation.
Hello, Oliver. The floor is covered with drawings, toys, and the bed is unmade. In a word, total chaos. There's no doubt that if Elon and Lux don't clean up today, a special service will come and take all the toys away from the house.
Want to prank your kids too? Go to the comments.
Yeah, so basically, like the mother, I mean, she's genius. I mean, she's some sort of a creator, so it's kind of not real, but like she created this fake video in order to instill that sense of, I don't know what, fear. I actually think that was like what was featured in the news was their room. Like so she created that video featuring their own room and like instilling that sense of fear that someone will go and take take away their toys. So this is the power of persuasion, but never tell them directly what to do, but find the ways to evoke that feeling, the fear, the emotion, whatever, like that is going to change their behavior. So that's how they are going to go and clean their room. So marketing is art, but marketing is also a science, and this is my next video to explain that.
Everybody knows about playing with dominoes, but what you may not know is that a domino can knock over another domino which is about 1.5 times larger. So what I have here is a chain of dominoes. Each one is 1.5 times larger than the previous one. And the smallest domino is about 5 millimeters high and 1 millimeter thick. And I will carefully place it. And there are 13 dominoes. And the largest domino, it weighs about 100 pounds and is more than 1 meter tall. Ready? Boom. That was 13 dominoes. If I had 29 dominoes, the last domino would be as tall as the Empire State Building.
Okay, so basically your job as a marketeers is to find the smallest domino you can find in order to knock off the biggest problem. And that's the science of marketing. And again, you can't do one without the other. And with that, that was all I had to say today. I mean, I do have a lot more to say, but I would love to hear from you.
That was fantastic. I loved every part of that. I have about 14 pages of notes that I was taking. So I guess the first thing is, students, what you can take yourself off mute. And Hannah has raised her hand, so I think we have a question here. Hannah, do you want to go ahead and ask the question?
Sure. I just want to know, what are your thoughts on like the ethics of marketing? Because you're talking a lot about like changing people's behavior and using like behavioral science to like make people do something that you want them to do without like them knowing about it, or like technically without their consent. So like, what's your thoughts on that?
Hey, Hannah, thank you very much for that question. And like I would say I deliberately opened, like or set myself up for that question in the presentation. So I'm grateful for you to ask that. I don't have the answer because like that's a personal choice. I've been, like this is one of the most important questions and dilemmas for me. And, like I would say, I've been thinking a lot and deep and, like probably changing my perspective on that. And I'll come to the answer, but just a little digression, like when I was talking to Tom, like whenever we were talking last, like we were saying that, like part of teaching is not about giving answers, like it's about provoking the thinking. And I can't give you the answer, like you need to come up with that answer yourself. But I'll tell you one thing, like I had the opportunities in my life to work for tobacco companies. I declined them, like because I believe in the power of engineering human behavior. And, like I want that power for as long or as much as I can influence, like to be used for good. Like, and don't ask me, please don't ask me if, like if I believe that, like working at Coke for 18 years was using that power for good. I think it was in a way because, like Coke is doing many great things, like other than making people drink sugary water. But being mindful of the power that you have, like as a marketeer, and make up your own mind, like how do you want to use that? So I'm just saying, like it's an incredibly important question. It's a deep one before you go and choose to do that in your life.
It certainly is a big one for marketers. And I agree with you. A lot of it is personal ethics, personal opinions. Certainly, I can understand why you wouldn't want to work at a tobacco company. People are
Uh,
it's a bad product that hurts people.
by the
Colin,
way, again, I don't want to scare you off, but like I read somewhere long, long time ago that like on the list of I think like the most trusted or respected um, jobs, probably marketing comes at the bottom after car salespeople, like or lawyers, like so. Just think about it.
all right. I have Colin raise his hand first, and after Colin, I'm going to go to Daniel. So, Colin, you take yourself off mute and speak your question out loud, please.
Hey, thank you for the presentation. I thought it was very beneficial. One question. So you said you worked at the Coca-Cola company for 18 years. Like out of those 18 years, what do you think the most beneficial information like for your career do you think you learned from working there?
Okay, one thing that I forgot to put in the presentation was I literally had it pinned on the wall, like at my desk, because I needed to remember that every day, and I would highly advise you to never forget it. And it was every decision you will ever make will create or destroy value for the company. So you are in charge, like your thinking is consequential, and you need to know, you need to think deep about the choices that you're making. So anyhow, that's a side answer to your question. It was really, I would say, life defining or career defining thing. The other one, I spent 4 years leading the integrated marketing communications team in Russia. I built the team, I built the discipline. At that time, first of all, integrated marketing communication was a different thing than what you're seeing in today's world. Like what you're seeing today is people calling integrated marketing communication is basically a fancy word for media planning, but that's not what it was meant to be ever. Integrated marketing communication is like a sum or combination of all communication disciplines. So anyhow, I was leading that team, and that team consisted of advertising and media and social and influencers and promotions and sponsorships and design and advertising and media, everything, like every single thing where the consumer meets the brand. So why was that the most important is firstly, like going back to the Dr. House series, like in order to diagnose the problem, you need to understand how everything works. Like if you don't understand, like there is this saying, I believe, like if the only thing you have is a hammer, every problem will look as a nail. Like so I believe in generalist thinking, like, and I believe you need to understand how everything works in order to understand what the problem is. The other thing is, like by understanding all these disciplines, you will be able to create value for these people. You will be able to work with them better. You will be able to give them what they need. You will be able to understand what they are giving you. So anyhow, the long answer to your question is always think broad, like I think as a generalist, and, like try to understand everything, because it's never about the single thing. It's about how everything connects.
Fantastic. All right, Daniel, take yourself off mute.
Hi, yeah, thank you so much for sharing the wisdom you've attained over so many years. I was just wondering, with like 35 years in business, is there at like any moment do you wish you prioritized something more and like with time down like the road, you're like, wow, at year 10, I wish I prioritized like this skill building or that like is there just with time down, is there anything you wish that you like focused on or gave more time to? in the beginning of your career?
Well, yes, and some of them are not good. Um, Firstly, like as I proudly said, like I come with a philosophy background. I don't have a classical marketing education, and that was in some ways, like limiting for me because, like if you look at the job descriptions and, like etc., everyone is asking, like for a degree in marketing. And I'm like, oh God, like I don't have it. I have a lot of knowledge, but like people don't care, like they are looking for the diplomas. I will never, ever, ever regret, like my background because, like I think it made me better at what I do. It made me different and special. So I would say, like think big, think broad. And one of my personal pet peeves, maybe it's not a pet peeve, but I don't read marketing books, or not anymore. I used to read them, and I read a lot of articles, but I hate reading them now. And like because I'll tell you, as a marketeer, the most important thing, the most important tool I have is my empathy. Like you can't be a marketeer without having an empathy and understanding it and being able to use it. And in order to have that empathy, you need to understand people. I mean, first of all, to understand people, you need to understand yourself. So I did study psychology as well, like as a minor. So you need to have a passion for people. You need to understand people. But, like you need to be obsessed by people. So read books, like read novels, like read everything, like that has to do with people's capacity, like people's struggles, people's desires, people's motivations. Search, like internet. I once I read, I found it actually, like there was some kind of, yeah, Reddit. Reddit is perfect. But I read somewhere that there was on the internet, there was some sort of confessional, like where people were confessing their secrets, fears, sins, etc. That is a golden mine. Like you need to understand how people think, like in order to be a good marketeer. So anyhow, what I wanted to say, like your biggest tool, most important tool is empathy. In order to cultivate empathy, you need to understand people. So don't read marketing books or read them at first, but like everything else outside of marketing is as important for you as marketing books. That was the first thing. The second thing that I promise, which is not good, is some people told me, and I was at first denying that. Afterwards, I figured that they were actually right. After 18 years at Coke, like people told me, you had a very successful career and all of that is great, but you stayed too long. And I was like, how did I stay too long? Like I'm coming from the time or generation when loyalty was important. It was a big thing. I'm still the most loyal person in the world. I will always be loyal to companies and to people, most importantly. But in the eyes of other people, like I became a Coke person, like, and people were thinking, oh, like she's great. She, like knows how to do that, but she doesn't know anything else. Which I totally disagree with. And that's why I joined Mira, like to firstly to prove that my knowledge is transferable, but also to build my resume, like in such a way to open up doors and spaces for future growth. So, like again, personally, I disagree that, like someone working at Coke cannot work in other industries, but that's not what the world sees. So my recommendation is do diversify your thinking and your background and your experience because like that way you will have the whole world open to you. So if there was something that I learned or I regretted is I would say staying too long in one lane, I'd say.
Thank
Without
you
a
for
doubt.
taking the time.
I guess going a little further than that, some advice for these students as they graduate and they get out to start their careers. Any additional thoughts on that?
Oh, yes. Like again, if you read my thinking in whichever media, you will see that I am a contrarian. I kind of think, like differently than anyone else. So I'll tell you, like what is very attractive and, like popular and sexy today is this whole like Silicon Valley playbook thinking, like all the startups and founders mentality and product-led thinking, etc. That's great, like, but the foundation for everything is a classical marketing, like, so again, like what I said about my open kitchen, like, and why cooking is similar to marketing. You need to understand the rules in order to break the rules, but you cannot break the rules before you learn the rules. So you need to go through the classical marketing thinking school in order to be good at any other school of thought. So my advice for you would be, like, find yourself a place, like, that will teach you how to think or how to do real marketing. And then after that, like, go crazy and break all the rules that you learned.
All right. Any other questions? Anybody have anything else? I have a bunch of them, but I want my students to have the opportunity to ask any questions. We are coming close to the end of the time. It's almost it's about 1:40, and this class is over in 5 minutes. I want to give students a chance. You can drop a question in the question box. You could raise your hand. Anybody have it?
Conan, is that?
If somebody have a question, take yourself off mute and say it out loud.
I have a question. So one of the questions I wanted to ask is what made you want to join Coke in the first place? And during those 18 years, like you've already answered it, where you said like you had some regrets where it was staying too long. Do you think like if you were allowed a chance to redo it all over again, how would you do it and where would you see yourself in?
Oh, Colin, don't ask me these difficult questions. So the first thing, it's kind of personal, which is I'm Serbian, like I was born and raised in Serbia, which is Eastern Europe. And, like unlike the rest of Eastern European countries, like when I was growing up, like Serbia was, or Yugoslavia at that time, like was very like Western oriented, and it was, like quite well off at that time, like compared to all other compared to all other Eastern European countries. And most importantly, what was different about Yugoslavia is that it was open to the Western world culture, like brands, advertising, movies, all of that, like, so we were kind of raised on that. And for me, when I was growing up, Coke was a symbol, I mean, literally a symbol of American dream. Like it was a symbol of freedom, it was a symbol of empowerment, it was a symbol of better world. And I remember, like I remember distinctly the moment I was probably around, I don't know, 15, 16 years old, when I had my first Coke. Like I was somewhere walking on the street and I bought a Coke can, like with my own money. And I kid you not, I remember the feeling, like that I had drinking that Coke, like the emotion, how I felt about myself, how I felt about my life, my future, my everything. And like when I joined Coke, it was literally the dream come true. Like because I just believed in that brand. I still do believe in that brand. I perhaps don't believe in the company, like because I saw everything, like behind the door. But I will never stop loving that brand. And then, like going back to that personal question of ethics and like how do you choose things? I was telling to Tom, don't quote me on that, but like when I was working at Coke, I didn't let my children drink Coke, but because of all the sugar and everything. But it will forever be a brand that I like or that I love. So anyhow, I would always choose Coke. Always
I
again.
appreciate
And
it. Thank you so much.
okay, welcome. Thank you for asking.
So we're gonna shut this thing down. I want to thank our special speaker,
Jelena.
Jelena. That was killer stuff.
Thank you.
I absolutely, man, better than I ever dreamed, could imagine. My students, you might not know it now, but you were just given solid gold. Certainly, you want to connect with our speaker. You want to go on her, subscribe to her Substack. Again, the way she thinks is fascinating, and that's where I discovered her. So by all means, reach out, follow her, or try to connect, and you'll be better off for it. So,
Tom, can I just say
sure.
one thing? I appreciate you so much, Tom. I appreciate you, but I appreciate everyone else, like in this group of wonderful, smart people. I'm on LinkedIn. Please connect with me. I am passionate about marketing, branding, advertising, and I'm passionate about passing that knowledge on. If you ever want to connect, if you ever want to talk, I will be more than happy to spend time with you. Like for me, that's a pleasure. So find me there, and yes, Substack obviously, but I'll be happy to share and talk to you, like anytime you need and want.
All right. Well, there you go. As we say thank you when we hang up this call, make sure everybody, as you log off, say thank. In fact, if you would stop sharing the screen, so we can see everybody's face. I want to try to get everybody on here. Hold on a second. Let me try something here because I want to see all these happy people. I don't know if I want to be able to pull it off. Forget about it. All right. So as you leave,
you wanted to change the view.
I wanted to see all the students. I want to see everybody on the screen, but I didn't figure it out. So that was great. Students, thank our speaker as you leave. She just gave you an amazing offer. Reach out to her, follow her. She'll answer any questions. And so this session can keep on going. Thank you. And everybody, we'll see you Tuesday. Bye, everyone. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, Tom.
And we're done.
Okay. Thank you for everything. Appreciate it.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. And I'll be putting something on LinkedIn thanking you publicly, but that was just killer. Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Thank
See
you
you
for the
later.
opportunity. I'll speak to you. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.